And welcome everybody to Norway Chess here on Chess Dojo. David checking in. How's everybody doing? Wow, 2 whole minutes of starting soon screen. That's a lot for me. But, you know, it's important. It's important to make some phone calls now and then, talk to your people, talk to your family. We've got 2 games still going here in Norway Chess. One of them finished quickly. It was Magnus Carlsen's draw with somebody like Wei Yi. We could click through it really quickly if we wanted to, maybe. Not many pieces on the board, but 31 moves played. Opposite colored bishops. Let's see. Today Magnus had black, and Wei Yi told him, I would love to repeat your game with Hikaru from yesterday. And Magnus stopped and thought for 4 minutes. And to his credit, he did not try to repeat the game with Hikaru. I think Wei Yi, this was like a tacit draw offer. He was like, you gave Hikaru a draw yesterday. I'm willing to give you a draw today. And Magnus said, well, let's see. Let's maybe play a game. So some moves get played. I have no idea what this is about. Bishop 2 c5 from here. Okay. So that's quick opposite colored bishops. I never knew this trick that you could play knight e5 falling for queen d4 and then fork like this. I've never seen that trick before. Interesting. Anyway, just a super fancy trade leading to a very, very equal looking position. Oh my god. Draw me now. Oh my god. Draw me now. All right. Not much of a game. Yeah, definitely absolutely no ambition from Wei Yi there. Minimal ambition from Magnus. Let's get into the games with the ambitious Indians and the moderately ambitious Fabi. Let's see how these go. And I think Hikaru's being a little bit ambitious here as well today. Hikaru, yeah. So he's played this line, which is also kind of like a 4-knight Scotch combo line. Let me move this over here so I can see, just in case the computer has any problems. At least I'll be able to see that it's dropping frames. Okay, so this is a famous variation, kind of like a Scotch into a 4 knights. You can also play the 4 knights and then play d4, e4, knight d4. So you can play either move order, Scotch, or 4 knights to get to this position. White gains ascendancy in the center for a moment by trading the d-pawn for black's e-pawn, but black immediately strikes at these 2 squares. The impact of the bishop sort of taking out this knight means that there's no good way for white to stop black from countering with d5 themselves. So they trade. d5 gets played, and here the age-old main line is pawn takes d5, bishop g5, c6, where black has split pawns but a little more center, and it's basically balanced. It's an interesting position that everybody should have played at least once in their lives, or seen some kind of top game in. But bishop g4 offering the sacrifice of this pawn after f3. This is a somewhat modern move. I've seen it played before. Bishop to g5, so white does not go for grabbing this pawn. Fair enough. Bishop g5. Black allows knight d5. And you can't go queen d4 takes d5 because of bishop h7. So the pawn looks like it's truly hung. I guess black's going to play queen b2. Let's see. Knight d5 does happen, and queen b2 does happen. Oh my gosh, we see Gukesh has an hour less on the clock than Hikaru. Up to here, they both played pretty quickly, it looks like. This opening phase here might have all been prep. Still rook b1, threatening to win the bishop on b4. We get a check to get one of the pieces out of the way. King h1, queen e5, defending the c7 pawn. Rook e1, taking the other open file. So here, black's got the bishop pair, and white has both open files. Yes? Black counters one of the files. White threatens checkmate. And black, yeah, has to defend h7. That gets us opposite colored bishops. Interesting choice from Gukesh. Oh, by the way, the one move that he really thought on was this move, rook b8. Here he spent 30 minutes probably looking at rook a b8, rook f e8. Maybe queen e7, bishop e7, rook e7 was worth a look as well. Because of white's back rank, you could then play rook b8 at the end of all that. And you won't necessarily lose that c7 pawn, right? You could play something like this here. But takes g4, gives the king a flight square. You come here, and white's going to trade. Man, you could lose your f-pawn too. I don't know. And then white starts taking pawns first. So he probably looked at this line for a while. Thanks, Oscar. I am. I hope you are too. So he probably looked at some lines around this queen e7, which looks like, you know, there's a chance it would be a dead draw, and there's a chance that white would be better. So he probably cranked through that for a while and finally plays rook b8, played rook b8. So we got this trade. What's more natural, FG or HG? To me, probably HG. Yeah, so I find FG just like a mild surprise here. We get a rook trade, and now g3, starting to take control of some dark squares with the pawns against these pieces here. So this position here, Hikaru playing the whole game really quickly. The only move he seems to have thought of, and even that less than 10 minutes, was queen e4, deciding to force this opposite colored bishop situation. So this position here, if the queens were off the board, it would be a dead draw, right? But with the queens on the board, it's very, very dangerous. Super sharp. Like if you were playing in a tournament game and you were 200 points higher rated than your opponent, you would love to have a position like this as white or as black, actually, because these opposite colored bishop middle games are super sharp, super dangerous, super calculation based, very, very tricky to play. Oh, that's awesome, Oscar Chess. Having fun, OTB. Good for you. Sorry, my phone's beeping away. Anything critical here? Some email. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't seem like anything too critical here. Yeah, we're going to ignore all that. Sorry, folks. All right, so basically the target is the king. There's a fair amount of calculation involved. Very tricky to play for both sides. Gukesh thought for 14 plus minutes here on rook f8. His first big think after the exchange. But honestly, even after thinking 29 minutes on rook b8, after queen e4, he thought 4 minutes before stopping mate in 1. What was he thinking about? There's only one move here that doesn't get mated, basically. Is there queen h6? I mean, that's ludicrous. You can't think 30 minutes, your opponent threatens mate in 1, and you're like, oh shoot, better come up with something. And there's only one thing to come up with. He hesitates on the recapture for 2 minutes. Oh, he's just playing really slowly today for a relatively simple position up to this point that will eventually be very complicated. Here he thought 25 minutes to retreat the bishop after 14 minutes on rook f8. What are you doing, buddy? And he's back in the tank after f4. So Hikaru's created a spot to hide the king on a light square, surrounded by a dark square pawn structure that'll keep this bishop and this rook away. So he can let the queen in, and it won't be anything like a perpetual. It'll just move out of the way. At the same time, his plan is to play h5, crack the light squares, get to the black king. So it's looking very dangerous for black at the moment. We're going to say +1 for now until we get more calibrated. Skibix, I think the idea is just to play h5 basically at some point. I think that's a pretty easy plan for white to do something, is just to play h5 at some point. So I guess we could start asking, is it already threatened, right? Like, black also needs a move. I don't know what move they're playing. But let's say black played check. You know, king here. Okay, he's just played queen f5 after another 11 to 12 minutes. So you couldn't really play h5 because of queen h5. So Hikaru would still have to do something, right? He would have to play something like rook e5, maybe, Skibix. So I could imagine something like he put the queen here. Oh, but now you can't play rook e5 because the queen can take it. So you have to find some other square for your queen, like this. Black wants to mark time. They don't have a lot of moves to mark time. So you can do something like this and this. I guess this is basically what black's doing, right? Just moving the queen around in the middle of the board. Seems generally defensible, right? I'm not making any obvious breakthrough for white, as long as black just keeps following us around with the queen. It is quite remarkable, is it not, Ashkill? We have never seen someone score so many points from such bad positions at this level. Never, I don't think. This is a very, very remarkable tournament. Maybe once in a lifetime, or maybe a new profile for Gukesh. So queen f5 was the choice. Obviously, a queen trade is very close to a draw. So white's going to move the queen away somewhere. And then Gukesh is just going to shuffle his queen around on different squares in the middle of the board, I think. Yeah. So say like queen e7. He'll have to go queen c5. Here's a little blunder for you all just to keep everybody on their toes. Right? So if queen e7, I think the plan would be to come over here, defend the rook in that direction with the bishop as backup. And then, you know, white has to keep bouncing around and you keep following her and she goes somewhere and I don't know. I don't know if she can ever really get somewhere where she can get to work easily. From here, you could play h5 as white. So maybe black goes back to here, preparing h5, queen h5. Seems fine. Black can also harass the king here, just see if white cares to put the king somewhere. I guess as white, I should be careful about giving up this pawn. Maybe I've gone a little too aggressive for white here. All right, so that's the live position right there. You know what? I think black can kind of hold it together by chasing the white queen around. So I'm going to reduce my eval to like 0.7 something. Probably a super computer is just calling it equal, to be honest. Like, if anyone out there has spacebar on, don't confirm for us. We don't want to hear about the computer evals. We're here to not hear the computer evals. But I imagine that out in computer land, this is my guess, I imagine that out in computer land it just says 0.0 basically. The black queen just chases around the white queen in circles and white can never make any progress. In human terms, white's better and black's position is more difficult to play. So I'm going to leave a positive evaluation for white over there, okay? Reflecting my sense of a human evaluation and a human versus human difficulty of playing the position. It's a little bit more difficult to play as black. I'm not even factoring in Gukesh's time pressure, which is mild, but is there. And hi, Chess Gone Mad. Yes, Gukesh won yesterday. Absolutely amazing. Mind-boggling. One of the biggest turnarounds in a chess game at that level ever. I think I called it pretty accurately. I mean, I haven't reviewed it with a computer, but I'm pretty confident in how I called it as far as like approximately the size of the advantage I ascribed to Arjun and the remaining chances I ascribed to Gukesh. I was very clear that I couldn't yet beat him from Arjun's position. I could not yet see my way to a position where, you know, it would be an automatic win for a 2700 level opponent. And yeah, Gukesh kept the game going pretty tight. Yes, Geebix, 1 hour is mild because you have to compare Gukesh's time not to Hikaru's time, because you're saying 1 hour. Gukesh has 27 minutes. Hikaru's time is more or less irrelevant here for assessing Gukesh's time trouble. Okay? Gukesh's time pressure is measured by 27 minutes to play the position that he has on the board here, right? The position he has on the board here is mildly difficult for black to play, but there's only strategically one or two things going on, right? White needs to play an h5 pawn break at some point. Any queen trade draws the game for black. The white king's pretty safe. The black king is in some danger. But like strategically, it's very clearly delineated what's going on. He doesn't have to assess, you know, what's the best square for this piece? Should I do this maneuver or that maneuver? There's nothing like that to think about. It's just some calculations. I think 27 minutes is enough for the task before him. So if you want a prediction right now, I think Gukesh can do it. I don't like how slowly he's played up to this point. And if he spends 10 minutes on his next move again, then at some point I'm going to be shaking my head and having a heart attack. But my sense right now is that the position is defensible and that he has the time he needs to play the position. So it doesn't matter how much time Hikaru has. Hikaru's playing extremely quickly, folks. He's played 25 moves in like 25 minutes or 28 minutes, you know? So he's played extremely quickly. That has nothing to do with whether Gukesh has enough time. I cannot play with you right now, Cosmic Drug. I'm sorry. I am ocupado. You see, we're watching a game here between two of the best players in the world, two of the top 5 players in the world for sure, right? I think the top 5 players in the world right now are Magnus, Hikaru, Fabi, Gukesh, and Arjun, right? And 4 of the 5 top players in the world are playing right now, and they're in this tournament. The 5th is also in this tournament, but he's already made a draw today, so we're not watching him. So we're watching the best players in the world, in the entire world right now, Cosmic Drug. And, you know, the people who are here right now with us are interested in watching them, not watching you and me. So you and I can play some other day when it won't be a letdown to those who want to watch Gukesh and Naka and Arjun and Fabi. Okay, so I've given my assessment on this board over here with Gukesh and Hikaru. And now we're going to take a quick look below us at probably an even more interesting and complicated position between Arjun and Fabi. It's also opposite-colored bishops, but there's an extra knight for each side, which adds quite a bit of dynamism. Knights are a very special piece. They give us a lot of the excitement in chess, you know, because they do different things. All the other pieces are like geometrical, and the knights are like these hoppy wild cards. Not to deliberately dumb down what I'm saying or sound like I'm silly or something like that, but the knights, they kind of break the straightforward clash that chess might otherwise be, right? Where pieces sort of run into each other and trade each other a lot. All right. So, looks like black may have played a Tarrasch defense. What do you think? Fabi might have played a Tarrasch defense here. And Arjun play like a G3 system against a Tarrasch. Let's have a look. Oh no. Rogozin. And then the Tarrasch move C5. So white's got the dark square bishop for free out of this opening. I mean, they spend a tempo on A3, but it seems like somehow white's not behind in development, so black must have lost a tempo somewhere as well. Oh, maybe moving the knight twice. So white's basically just playing with the bishop pair. I would have assessed this position at around move 11 as being just slightly pleasant for Arjun. But what Fabi has going for him is very free piece development, right? So the game's relatively easy to play for black, even at the beginning, the opening phase. You're not agonizing about getting a foothold in the center or developing all your pieces. It's a little bit easy to play. You know you've got free play. You know there are some ways in which you're going to be a little bit worse, but you have to keep making sure that you've got some good squares in the center for your knights and just stay active. I think both players could have been satisfied with the opening at this point. If I just make a guess, it looks like up to this point, Arjun had played more or less instantly. This is very similar to the line he played with white against Gukesh last week, which was tremendous and led to a crushing win for him. So Fabi could have guessed that this kind of line could come up, but I still see he was spending a few minutes on every single move here. So I don't know what was up with his prep or not prep. It's a little bit weird because this is sort of like an obvious variation for Arjun to simply repeat what he played against Gukesh earlier in the same tournament. You would think Fabi would blitz something out. I don't know why he didn't. But anyway, we get here. Here, Fabi took a big think, 22 minutes, and decided no knight trade. He's going to go to the light squares with his knights. Big decision from Arjun. He only spent 30 seconds on it. Wow. So he transitions from bishop pair to opposite colored bishops. I guess he'd already looked on his previous moves. He'd thought for some minutes already, and he'd already understood maybe that it was going to be a necessity because of the pressure against the c-pawn. One of the surprising moves from Arjun this game is knight takes d4 instead of the more structurally based c takes d4, keeping a perfect structure. That's a slightly surprising move to me. He played it in 10 seconds, so I think it was still part of his plans. So he just gives the bishop pair there. And then he's playing technical. Okay, he's unleashing a threat on d5 and a threat on e4, so he gets his pawn structure mildly improved. And now here's the position where he's thinking. Fabi thought quite a while here whether to take with the rook or the pawn, apparently. And then again, whether or not to trade the rooks here. Obvious move is bishop d4. Maybe the calculation with bishop a7, b6 is complicated, maybe? 26 minutes Arjun spent on this. So that was a big deal for him. Bishop d4 comes in. Have I missed any moves over here? No, not yet. Bishop d4. I mean, do we think bishop a7 was close? Could that be something he spent a long time thinking about? Because that's one pawn. That's two pawns. And then how straightforward or messy is the position that obtains here? I don't really want to move off of the file. I think something like rook f5, queen e7 is just going to drop the bishop. So I got to do something more critical maybe. We'll defend the knight. Here for black we could go knight e5. Go queen e7. See, this is a very, very long, kind of very hard to calculate variation. Lots of possible moves along the way. Even though everything of white's is hanging, there's a very good chance that white emerges in a winning bishop versus knight endgame here, with bishop takes b6 at some point and one b pawn left on the queen side. Right? So this line I may have just lost for black, and this is the kind of line that would be tempting as white that would make you spend a lot of time calculating bishop a7. b6 takes here, here. Lots of moves possible. What else could we try here? We could try queen e7 and then I go queen e4, right? If black takes here, I can take this. Knight e5 made some sense. Rook f4 was a sad little move. Knight f3 check. I was going to play king g2 and then this move wins, so that doesn't work. King h1 then. Queen c6. The same queen e4 move now. The knight looks so dead, I think black might have to trade queens here. Maybe there's also knight e5. Knight e5, bishop b6. This position looks very risky for black. Queen takes c3 instead of queen c6. Oh, right. Once I didn't put the king on g2. I'd originally looked at king g2, blundering knight e1. But once I put the king on h1, you could play queen c3 and defend the knight there. Then we'd go here, here, here. Now you see why somebody would have to calculate this as white until they found a refutation for black. Because if this works, it works. You know, there's no reason to assume that this can't work for white. It totally could. This could be just game winning, basically. Bishop a7, if they don't play b6, then you're up a pawn, right? If they do play b6, they're risking 2 pawns. So now if they don't trap your bishop, you're generally going to be winning the game. So yeah, my first suspicion is that bishop a7 cost Arjun a lot of effort. Just, you know, chess is move by move. You can't reject bishop a7 at this level because b6 looks risky. You have to look if you're winning, drawing, losing, or slightly better in an endgame, you know, and then assess if you want to do it. By the way, from the very first move, black can also play this way, not aiming at the king side, simply trying to solidify the knight and then play queen here and trap this piece. But here as well, I think there's a fair degree of complication to the following kind of variation. Right? White gives an exchange and then keeps this piece. And I think in this particular variation, queen b4 might basically just solve it as a draw. but yeah, there's a whole other direction to look at with bishop e6. And yeah, I don't know what all white might have as resources in this line. Here I would think there's another candidate move, queen d3, and another one maybe even queen a4, although I'm not sure about rook a8 might end it. But queen d3, we've got rook d8, h6 stops knight g5 as well, which is a good idea. Yeah, maybe that's the end of that. Okay, so after 26 minutes, Arjun settled for bishop d4. Fabi has not yet responded to that. We do have a move on the other board to update, but what's my general sense of this position? It's slightly better for white, right? Because of black's pawn structure being split. But a lot of it's going to hinge again on the activity of the opposite colored bishops. White's looks pretty amazing right now. Yeah, so Arjun has a bit of an edge. So bishop a7 would really be only something you play if it's extremely good. Otherwise, you'd settle for this and continue pressing the opponent. Queen's got to move somewhere. Probably doesn't want to allow knight g5, so it could be queen f5. Queen h6. Queen e7. Yeah, white's just going to be a tiny bit better for now, but it's not clear how much. Let's see what's happened here. Carr moves the queen away, and the queen could go back to c5, but played to f6. I don't know, DG. I don't know. I have this video that I opened up that I wanted to watch.
Hi, Magnus.
Let's see if you guys can hear it too. Let me put it on. Okay.
Preferred to play rapid blitz chess today, right?
Yeah.
Understandably. And hi, Magnus. Preferred to play rapid blitz chess today, right?
Yeah.
Understandably. And I just heard that the possibility of playing more classical chess. You're sort of thinking whether you want to continue that or concentrate on 960 or blitz in future.
The thing is that, losses are painful, like no matter what, but at least if I can lose, like doing something that I really enjoy, then that's much easier. Like I don't have any, it's not that I cannot play, it's just situations like yesterday, like I'm just wondering, like, why am I doing this? Like, what's the point? But I will do my best in the last 3 games here. Then we'll see, I suppose.
Guess there's a lot of pain being a top sportsman. And I've seen you play a lot of golf. Hopefully you'll be able to get a round in now or two to relax.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's good to do something to get my mind off of the games, and when the games start at 5, then I have some time to do that and get some lunch with my wife and everything. So that's nice.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get wieners.
Okay. So, DG asked what's going on with Magnus. I had that video queued up. I wanted to watch it later on my own, but why not watch it with you all? I think you could hear what he was saying in that interview. I'll tell you something interesting that you couldn't hear from it, but that I could see, is that Ginger GM, Simon Williams, who was interviewing him, did not look Magnus in the eyes or didn't even look at Magnus during the interview. Magnus was here and he was like this the whole time. And I don't know that that's a normal thing for Simon, that he doesn't like to look at people. I think that it might be he was so uncomfortable with how much pain Magnus is in that he couldn't bear to look at Magnus at that moment. So I think you hear what's going on there. Magnus just doesn't even want to play classical chess. That's what happened yesterday with Hikaru. And it's just so painful for him right now. He's just suffering. I think in this case, he's not suffering because of opening prep, like with the World Championship preparation. Obviously, he didn't have to do special opening preparation for this tournament, and he didn't have any problems with his opening preparation. It's not like Gukesh won the game by out preparing him, and he's like, oh, what's the point? Somebody else is spending more time pressing spacebar than me. I think the what's the point doesn't refer to even to like the prep for classical chess. Honestly, it could apply to Chess 960 or anything. What's the point? Magnus is maybe tired of playing chess after all these years. No, Simon was not reading questions, MG Weirdo. Not that I could see. I think he was thinking of the questions himself. Sorry, there's a really beautiful hummingbird right outside my window, which is distracting. What a beauty. But yeah, I mean, it's just pure, like, he's not enjoying it. And most really serious chess players that I know have gone through at least one, if not many, phases where they didn't enjoy playing chess, which is a really, really weird thing, right? Because all of them have also gone through a phase in their life where they were in love with chess, and if you had told them that one day they could be a master, or that one day they could be a professional chess player, they would have said, I've got no other questions about my future. You know, that is just the greatest thing that could ever be. I'm so happy to know that I will be so blessed, right? And that's what they thought as a kid who loved chess, that there could be nothing better than to get to be a professional chess player. And honestly, the little kid was fairly correct. But then you get so wrapped up in your ego and, you know, the pain of losing a game and this and that. Everybody finds some negative something at some point, and they can construct for themselves a hell out of what is actually a paradise. I mean, he's traveling around the world to cool locations, playing one of the greatest games ever invented. And, hanging out with other really cool people. Like, being a chess pro, I can tell you, is objectively as amazing as the little kid versions of ourselves dream and imagine it to be. And we just fall into these weird pits because of ego, because for most people, and there's different reasons for different people, and there might be somebody who's never suffered playing chess, but most people I know have at some point. We get some idea of how good or how great we want to be or should be compared to other people, and then we just can't be happy anymore. I'm glad to hear that, Chess Gone Mad. Chess Gone Mad over on YouTube saying, Fabi said he couldn't look at chess for a year a while ago. I'm not happy to hear that because that's bad for Fabi, right? I'm happy to hear that because I'm glad that Fabi said, who's somebody that, many people have listened to, that he said something so important and so honest about it. It's really great for the top players to be honest about some of this stuff. And then we can all heal a bit, So, I remember, the phase in my life where I was going to chess tournaments and not enjoying it. Crazy. I remember it. So that's where Magnus is right now. That's the short answer. He's probably not even enjoying the rapid games, but the faster he can get the classical games done with, the faster he can get the rapid games done with, the more time he can spend on something else, taking his mind off of the fact that he doesn't enjoy his job right now. But he's going to have to either, switch jobs or recalibrate and understand how good a job he has. Isn't he expecting a child? I don't mean to gossip or anything, but I feel like I heard the news that he might be expecting a child. That would be a whole different phase for him and a different job that would be available. He could spend a couple of years raising one or more children. It's a very difficult but important job and quite interesting, quite different. Yeah. Evan confirming that they've announced a pregnancy, so I'm not just like gossiping about whispers in the hallways, you know. That'd be cool. Maybe he'll take a break. I would recommend it, honestly. I mean, Magnus, you know, he's played 20 years of chess tournaments. Now's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to be there and be present with a baby. It's a miraculous thing how humans are created. So maybe just hang out and live with that for a while. So Hikaru strengthens his position a little bit more with the rook to the 5th rank. This takes away c5 from Black's queen and opens up possibilities of h5. Black plays queen d6. It feels like Gukesh has actually been outmaneuvered just in the last 2 moves. I don't know why in this position here he played queen f6 instead of queen c5, continuing to pursue the queen and not giving white time for rook e5. I definitely don't understand it. Queen f6, rook e5, queen d6. Feels like he's been outmaneuvered, but I guess the question is, how strong is h5 right now? That's what we're going to have to check on. And by the way, Undefining telling us they're playing their first open tournament this weekend with 2 games a day. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be nervous. It's going to be jittery. It's going to be intense. It's going to be a lot of things. Undefining. Enjoy it. Try to enjoy it and go into it with some kind of a goal. I recommend. The goal could be to enjoy it. The goal could be to remember it. The goal could be to make a chess friend. You know, you don't need some goal like you're trying to win a million games and become a miserable professional player, you know. But it's nice to have the focus of some kind of a goal when you go to chess tournaments. That's my number 1 tip for chess tournaments. Okay, Hikaru played c3 here, taking away a square from the queen. Unrooting the bishop, but it's hard to ever even threaten the bishop because of back rank checkmate. And it's hard to ever get rid of back rank checkmate because of, you know, the weakness of the g6 pawn. Oh, those are 2 really good goals, Undefining. Yeah, that should keep you focused. Trying to learn some things about the structures and openings, the structures that come from your openings, and then trying to take care of your pieces and not blunder any of them. Do you normally blunder pieces when you play a game? Like, how often do you feel like you blunder a piece during a game? I asked this to get at how realistic is your goal to not blunder any pieces. Because all of us would like to not blunder any pieces, right? But we have to have a goal that's reasonable for ourselves. So based on your current skill level, you know, should your goal be to blunder no pieces or to blunder only 1 piece per move or to blunder only 1 piece per tournament? If you make sure it's achievable, you have a better chance of achieving it and being satisfied with yourself, you know? And also, goals that are unrealistic are of minimal use in my own experience, because somewhere you know you can't really achieve the goal, somewhere in your heart of hearts, right? And so it doesn't really motivate you. What motivates you is something that you can actually do, right? Just like imagine giving math problems to a child or an adult. If you give them problems that they have no hope of solving, they will work less hard on them. If you give them problems that they know they can easily solve, they will work less hard on them. This is on average. Obviously, people are different. But the sweet spot is you give them problems where they've got like a chance to solve it, but they're not 100% sure they can solve it. You know, it's like a difficult level for them. That's when most people will work the hardest. So, okay. Seems fine, Fluent. Seems fine, Undefining. Sounds like you can go for that goal. Not flat out hang any pieces at your tournament. And I guess since it's your first time playing 2 games a day, if you want to achieve that goal, you'll have to pay attention to getting tired in the second round each day, right? That's going to be when you're at the greatest risk of dropping a piece. It's going to be in that second game each day as you get tired. Hey, LJL Chess. We got an interesting battle here between Hikaru and Gukesh, and then another one over here between Arjun and Fabi. Fabi in a bit more time trouble than Gukesh. Do you guys follow that by looking at it? Because it's not about how much time your opponent has. It's about how much time you have for how complicated the position is. And Fabi's position is more complicated than Gukesh's position. So he's definitely under some pressure here. Goes for Queen A6. So he's got the idea of maybe Bishop or Queen to A4 to simplify here. Sicilians and kids. Yeah, so you're playing a style of chess that's supposed to put more pressure on yourself and your opponent to blunder. Right, Undefining? Unless you're not self-aware about that element. But in general, if you're playing like Kasparov, in terms of your opening selections and your intensity, the idea is to get more blunders from your opponent, but also from yourself. Just that you're going to get more blunders out of your opponent, so it's going to make up for the blunders you make. It's not to play perfect chess. So that's the kind of chess that interests you. Then honestly, I don't mean to, knock your life upside down at the last moment. But I don't like the goal of not blundering any pieces matched with playing a style of chess that's designed to elicit blunders from both you and your opponent, but hopefully more from them. To me, to maximize the complications and then say your goal is to not blunder anything, I don't like it. I think it should be more about trying to find a couple really good moves. You know what I mean? To sometimes find a really difficult move in a critical moment. I think it's more about getting it right sometimes than about never getting it wrong when you play when you play for that kind of intensity. You know? Like, what if your goal were, I want to find one brilliant move each game, instead of I want to never blunder? Doesn't that match what you're doing a little bit better as a goal? By the way, down on this board here, folks, because the queen is protected, bishop a4 is actually a threat, right? Because if white pinned the bishop, you could take the queen, they take your queen, and when you take back, you're up a rook. And similarly, bishop a4, queen a2, you could just take the rook because your queen's protected. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You're not saying like you're not going to miss any 2-move tactic or 3-move tactic. You just want to not play any moves that look like, queen f5 transferring to the king side and your opponent takes. And I understand that's a more doable goal than the other one. But do you see what I'm saying about like the complication chess versus not blundering, or the complication chess with trying to find good moves? Doesn't my goal make more sense? No? LJL Chess says, forget about pawn to h5. Let's look at rook to h5 for Hikaru. Is that right, LJL Chess? Right here, that's what you're looking at? Hikaru's played king h3, by the way, just now. But you're wondering if he could have gone straight here? What's the point after pawn takes rook? I think maybe you need your queen on e4 before you play rook h5, yeah? Okay. So some want to play queen e4 to prepare that. Maybe we should see how viable that is. Let's just allow it, put it on the board, see what we think. I have a move that might defend. Against queen g6, I want to play queen d3 and defend h7 with the queen. I'm almost mated, but I'm not, right? What about here? I am mated, huh? So this can't be done. See if there's any other defense. So queen g6. Here's a simple defensive move. So here I'm stopping rook h7, king h7 for sure, just by having the queen here. And now queen g6 is just winning back a pawn that you just sacked on the queen side, right? We go to opposite colored bishop ending and, well, black should be okay. They're still a little bit worse, by the way, but they should be okay. Pawn to GM also points out, you know, black could take a pawn with check here. But I'm not sure what we do then. You can play this ultra ugly move, protecting h7 that prevents rook h5, and then after bishop c4, hilariously, you've trapped your queen on the light squares and you lose. Rook f7, rook e8. That's just horrific. So queen e4, personally I think this queen c3 defense was pretty reasonable with queen c3, queen f6. That'd be my take. So king h3, tucking the king in advance. Gukesh doesn't have a lot of useful moves here while waiting around. I don't really love putting his queen further and further into the corner because of this, right? And here and here. Maybe it comes out about the same though. Maybe he doesn't mind. On the other board, I think Arjun moved. Let's see, knight g5. I warned you, Fabi. I said he wanted to play this move. 21 minutes. And now Fabi's thinking. So I had seen queen a6, but I didn't mention it in chat, right? The three moves I mentioned earlier were these three moves, all moves that stop knight g5. So he plays queen a6, knight g5 happens. Now, what does he have to do? Queen g6? Queen g6, I would have the awful feeling that white could trade queens and grab the a7 pawn. Yeah. I definitely think that there's a very strong chance white can get away with bishop a7. Oh, we got a move here already? Queen h6 was played. Yeah, so he went back over with the queen. He avoided the queen trade. Here he attacks the knight, so there's no time for bishop a7. But Arjun quickly, h4. He's planned something. Show us your strength, Arjun. Show us your strength. 20 minutes on knight g5. You're going to have a sequence prepared. I know you. So you're going to come here. Now, let's say black played b6. What would white's next step be? By the way, I'm defining whether or not you blunder. You're going to play multiple games, 2 games a day. You don't need every single game to maximize what you can learn from it. You're going to have some games that are going to be worthy of study afterwards. H4. All right, Gukesh finally played something. He just came back where he was from. Yeah, queen d6. Worrisome. Worrisome for Gukesh. He's like continuing to burn time. I mean, 8 minutes per move just doing not just shuffling. Very, very concerning. Very concerning. I mean, it's fine to shuffle, but then you need to shuffle quickly. It's fine to think, but then you need to do something that advances the game. If you think a ton and shuffle, I mean, you're just headed towards death on the clock. That's not a great move. 8 minutes to go back to where you came from. I hate that. I hate that. And the question is now h5, right? So this is a pretty big threat. Card played king g2, repeating positions. Come on, play quickly for one move, Gukesh. Thank you. We get a very critical move from Fabi. f6. It blunts this bishop, right? It blunts this bishop. But what is Her Majesty doing over there now? She can get back into the game through this diagonal, through like queen g6 or something, but knight f3 quickly, a6 quickly. Yeah, had to spend a tempo on that pawn. My instinct would have been b6, not a6. Very strong instinct to play b6 instead of a6 there. But, you know, they're calculating tons of variations, which are going to trump intuition. Now maybe bishop here. Is black then going to play b6 in response to that? Yeah, maybe I didn't worry about rook a1 enough, Oscar. But I guess I even thought that black could play a5. You know, make a pass pawn. It can walk all the way to a3. a6. So white wants to open the center before the black queen gets back into the game. Can white play e4? The first line I started calculating was bishop c5, opening up this threat. But then b6, rook takes d5, idea bishop c6, rook d4. There's bishop e6, and we can't go to d6 because of the knight. All the black pieces get defended, and I sack a piece, which I don't want to sack a piece. So that gives me the idea, maybe the main thing we want to do is e4. Can we play this? But after bishop g4, there's a good chance that that's blundering, right? Knight e1 was played by Arjun. This knight has two possible destinations, but when it goes to d3, of course, black will have the option of bishop f5, getting rid of it. So maybe it'll go through g2 just to try to get to f4. Less flexible than knight d3, but less stoppable as well. This knight does want to be on a dark square, for sure, right? So these are kind of the squares you would want it to be on if you think about it diagrammatically. You know, sometimes you look at a position like this, you say, okay, my knight's not well placed. What's the best square on the board for it? Generally, when someone plays f6, you know, f4 becomes the best square instead of f3. On top of that, we've got this light squared bishop, so the knight's always been better off on a dark square than a light square. So the bishop can't attack it, but it can attack the bishop. It can take squares away from the bishop, right? My whole idea of bishop c5, rook d5 would be much better with a knight on f4. One question is there any way Fabi can play g5? Sorry, knight e1. Is there any way Fabi can play g5 to keep the knight off of f4? But g5, weakening this f6 pawn and this king, seems a little hard to believe. So my instinct there is going to be no, that he won't want to do that. Also, white's king generally has a bit more pawn cover than black's king. So pawn trades on the king side are going to hurt the black king more than the white king. Knight e1 to g2 to f4 looks like a fabulous idea from Arjun. Like just what the position ordered strategically. Fabi's under some pressure, just as Gukesh is. Both players with black under pressure here today. Take a moment to work on my breakfast while the players ponder. It's been a great tournament this year, hasn't it? This Norway chess. Been pretty good, huh? I mean, sad to see Magnus coming off the rails a little bit, you know, and being unhappy. I never wish misery on any of these guys. Certainly not on my favorites of them. Maybe cheaters and those who support wars, I wouldn't mind so much if they weren't enjoying their chess tournaments. That's a very small number. Almost all the top chess players, I'm a fan of them. I'm a fan of most of the top chess players. So, very sad to see Magnus suffering, but it is a part of professional chess. They all have times where they suffer, unfortunately. By the way, it does not feel, from that one little clip that we watched of him being interviewed by Ginger GM, it does not feel like Magnus is going to pull it together in the next 3 days and play any great classical games. It sounds like he's going to try and, phone it in the classical games at least. Get draws and maybe try to win the Armageddons, but there's only so much you can do in terms of generating motivation in 2 or 3 days when you're miserable. It's really hard when your heart is just elsewhere. And I know to some degree these top players are built differently than us psychologically. Most of them probably have, pretty special configurations. Magnus throughout his career was great at bouncing back from losses, which is part of why yesterday's non-game with Hikaru surprised me. Because in the past he's bounced back so much, but he bounced back because he was hungry, because he was motivated. A loss was just fuel to get better. And now it seems like this week at least, a loss is just pain. It's just pain. And just asking himself, why am I even here if I don't enjoy it? Which is the right question to ask. It's the right question to ask. But from my own experience, it's probably going to take a while to figure it out. Just to mention that for myself, I started not enjoying chess tournaments. And then how long did it take for me to figure out the problem? I think between 3 and 4 years. It took me 3 to 4 years to figure out what was going on with myself and make appropriate changes. So, obviously, when I figured it out, I thought to one of the first things I thought was, how could it have taken me 3 or 4 years to figure this out? If I had been doing a profile on myself as like an opponent, I would have figured out what had happened in half an hour, just playing through my games and looking at my career. I could have made a profile and figured it out in half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. Instead, it took 3 or 4 years. So I was pretty disappointed when I realized it. Like, wow, that was terribly slow, and you should have figured this out long ago. Would have saved you a lot of suffering, and replaced that suffering with a lot of positive stuff. Despite that, I'm going to say, for someone to figure it out in 3 or 4 days would be a big surprise to me. So I think Magnus is going to suffer for the rest of Norway chess at least. Wow. Arjun goes through D3. So he doesn't care about bishop F5? Fabi didn't play bishop F5 either. He played rook E8. What's wrong with bishop F5? Queen could come here, dreaming of the middle of the board. You have to take it. If you play bishop F5, you have to take the knight, right? You can't play bishop F5, then let the knight keep bouncing. Okay. So this here is good for white. Tactically, knight b2 doesn't work. Knight e4, more normal and centralizical. We almost have to take it. Come in here anyway. Queen c6 covering everything. Draw. Is there a way I could not take this? I think Baymon's looking at queen d5 for Hikaru over on this board here. But maybe we should just sit down on that board for a moment and calculate some h5. I've just been finding the Aragaisi Caruana game a little, like just a touch more interesting. Rook e8. What else would be the plan here? Rook takes. Looks pretty solid for black. No, I definitely do not understand this. I do not understand why both of these players don't think black wants to trade this bad bishop for this good knight. I am absolutely slamboozle, floored, and confused. So I don't know if this qualifies as excellent analysis, honest doubter, but I cannot begin to guess why white allows bishop f5 and black doesn't go for it. I just don't understand. Is there something for white in that variation chess gone mad? Hey, Optashach, how are you? Does white have something here that I missed the first time around? This was as far as I looked last time. And this is where I stopped and assumed that white had nothing. Black does look a little bit loose before the queen comes to c6. That's why I played queen a4, but I don't see any reason black would be worse here. I do a Fashach, yeah. I didn't know Renek's birthday. But happy birthday to you, Renek, wherever you are these days. Yeah, I can't see anything. I can't explain why the game went the way it did. After rook e8, Arjun plays queen c1, leaving this pawn hanging. There's sort of a baby tactic here of knight f4. What? What happened, Ofashah? No, Fabi's still thinking in this game here. Sorry, folks, I'm reading for a minute here. Man. Awful news. Man. Really? Reminds you don't know what's going on in everybody else's life, huh? Oh. So Fabi is obliged to play b6 anyway eventually to stop knight c5. So I feel like it would have been better with the pawn on a7, but not a big deal maybe. And now the knight can come to f4. Arjun's still naggingly better over there. I don't think that evaluation has changed. Hikaru played king h3, queen d6, repeating. And then queen e4, bishop c5, king g2. Queen b6. I don't know what they're up to on this board. Hi, Nemtomi. Somebody over in our Twitch chat shared that an old-time dojoer died. We don't know how, but I was just reading their obituary and feeling sad. That makes sense, Opfashach, yeah. I don't know to what extent people gave him a hard time, Hockey Chess Dude. I think there's probably some extent to which anything Magnus does is under a microscope, right? As such a big famous person. But maybe I don't read the right places, but I haven't seen anything too critical about it. He and Gukesh had good things to say about each other. And it was certainly a 1 in a million frustrating blunder for Magnus. All right, well, I need to understand something about this Gukesh game. Is he trying to threaten queen b2, queen c3 here? What is happening? So king h3. What happens if white plays h5 here? Like, what is going on? I mean, let's say white just achieves the h5 pawn break. What does that mean for the game? Still seems like black's kind of under the gun. Hey, Benedict. Oh, Benedict and Chess Gone Mad. You guys are on at the same time. But one of you's on YouTube and one of you's on Twitch. Have you ever played together? Or sparred together or anything together? Do you know each other, Chess Gone Mad and Benedict? I wanted to connect the two of you. He just did. Okay, perfect. I had a great sparring session with Chess Gone Mad a week ago, Benedict. I think that you guys would be very well matched. I don't see a reason for Hikaru not to play h5. Even last move, much less this move. Oh, why not rook h5? Yeah, we looked at rook h5 a bit before. Caesar, yes, you can beat an opponent who significantly outcalculates you. Of course. Even somebody who significantly outcalculates you might make a mistake on any given day, right? In calculation. Additionally, they could make mistaken evaluations, They could go into a rook ending thinking that it's drawn, but it's actually lost. They're just not so good at rook endings or whatever. I mean, if they outcalculate you, they're probably worse than you at something. And they repeat one more. Well, that's a shock, Arjun. Knight b2. That's a huge surprise. I thought that knight was going to be good on f4. He wants to trade this knight to worry black about the queenside pawns. I mean, from a perspective, it makes sense, and this wouldn't really be much of an idea with the black pawn still on a7. Right? But, because if black takes, and they have to defend this pawn on b6, because there's no pawn on a7, as well as dealing with the pawn on the a file. But I just thought knight f4 was nice. Man, I'm curious to review this later with the computer and just get some feedback on some of my positional concepts or evaluations. Hey Lumbra, how are you? Ooh, Baymon's calculating some long lines here. So, queen d5, c6. Oh, that had to be in another position, though, right? It couldn't be queen d5 here because this bishop would be hanging. I don't know that, Benedict. You know, I looked at h5 before, like on this move here, where he played queen e4. I looked at h5. Personally, I didn't see anything wrong with it. You know, I saw pawn takes, rook takes, g6, rook comes back into the middle of the board. As long as the bishop covers h1, it looks like the king's pretty safe. And black's still alive, but now there's this diagonal open, so white's going to want to try and get the rook to e7 or e6. Bully the queen in. Still looks scary. I don't know. They are at move... On Hikaru's board, they're at move 34. At move 40, they only get a 10-second increment. So getting to move 40 is not going to save them very much. They don't get an extra half hour or anything like that. So I don't understand very well what's going on either board, I guess I have to admit today. Not predicting the strategic currents very well. Even though the position seemed somewhat simple strategically to me, I thought that I understood what's going on. Maybe Hikaru knows that h5 doesn't crush black and that black can't stop it. So what he's doing is he's maneuvering as long as possible before playing h5 to let Gukesh run his clock down to 1 minute. You're just trying to make the game as long as possible for Gukesh to get the lowest possible on time before starting any decisive things. Gukesh is human, but also, you know, very, very strong and energetic. You don't necessarily get like fatigue mistakes out of him, but